Welcome to the 2040 Vision, hosted by Helena and Jason, where fresh perspective meets hard-earned wisdom, because growth is clearer when you see it from both sides.
Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the 2040 Vision podcast. This is exciting.
I am so excited to finally start this.
Right?
This has been months in the making.
Multiple months in the making.
Yeah.
We've had our share of challenges and
trial and errors.
A little bit of learning and a little bit of tinkering and toying. Mainly I will try not to be hands onto my microphone and leave it alone, so things record properly. But we're here. I think this is the official start of something really, really cool.
I agree. We first started without even video, and here we are on video.
Hi. We've decided to record a little bit on video. You'll probably catch that on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see some of our visuals. Again, it's not meant to be the professional setup, and we'll talk about everything we want for this podcast. But first, I'm Jason.
I'm Helena.
And we are just two regular folk who've known each other for
12 plus years.
Yeah, I guess I started dating my wife, who's your cousin. It would have been 12 years ago, 12-ish, 13 years ago. And that's when I met Mini Helena. and then we've evolved. We've watched each other grow kind of throughout the years. I got married. I've had children, one of which is your.
I have not got married. I have no children.
Yeah. That's okay. It's okay. You're 20, you're 20, 25, 26, 26. You got time.
Yeah,
I'm married
at
35, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So for me,
no rush.
I think you're in good time. It's fine. And then we kind of really. I just recently turned 40, and we kind of, hence the name 2040 Vision podcast. That's kind of where that came from.
26, 40. Our visions.
Super young, really old.
No, 40 is the new 30. Did you not hear?
I hope so. Somebody tell my niece that. That's the big one for me. So my 40th birthday kind of brought a whole lot of thinking for me around growth and where I need to be, and I got 2 kids now and family and yada yada yada, and then I kind of we for what we were, I don't know, we were in the group chat. Was it group chat? I don't know how this came up, but we basically started kind of talking about how you're kind of going through.
I think I wrote in the group chat something about my new goal for the year.
That's what it was.
That was around budgeting, and you were like, "Oh, you're thinking along the same lines that I am." But I think same line but different paths, kind of. So we were like, "Oh, let's get together." I think 2 different point of views would be really, really cool to mesh together and kind of show everybody, and maybe can be relatable, and somebody can listen to our story and be like, "Oh, I'm inspired. I think I'm gonna think the same way, or I should do that or not." That's okay too. And
out was born this podcast.
Yep.
We jotted down some ideas. We worked on it.
So I am a mother.
Yeah. How's it feel? You just gave birth. We don't mean for this to be kind of the perfect podcast. It's not. It's more of a relatable, kind of like real life thing where we're not experts of the field, but we're 2 passionate people about growth in our different stages, what that looks like. A lot of life learnings from my point of view, things that I could have probably done differently, and then a lot of first times and cool new age things, kind of from your point of view.
Right.
And we were like, man, that kind of actually makes a really cool dynamic for the podcast, and hopefully that resonates with you, the listener. And it's something that interests you guys, and you can kind of follow along with our journey and our successes and our failures. and some of the tips and tricks that we learn along the way and share with you, and maybe some of the tips and tricks that you guys know of and can share with us. And that's kind of why we started this podcast. It's kind of like, a way to just kind of do this together, grow together. We get to know each other a lot better.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually ever sat down and had a real life well, like more
surrounding this podcast at this point.
Yeah. Like real conversation, sit down and like, okay, we're talking about things we've never spoke to each other about yet.
There's still some stuff. I mean, there's topics coming up that we technically haven't even touched on or talked about or
ever.
A little bit, but yeah. There's
but the two main words is relatable but passionate. We're not here to teach you to be the 1% in the world. Like, we're here to talk about what every average person is going through with intention, though.
Yep. And that's it. That's kind of like the what do they say? The TLDR, the kind of short and sweet version of what we want to do and what we want to present. And growth is the general topic, but we'll get into like a lot of different life aspects and stories, and we'll talk about different versions of what growth looks like. It can look coming up episodes. We kind of got like things like the actual habits, growth within habits and routine, and then things like productivity, and then things like organization. There's growth within there, and then finance, and then maybe love. That's one we've never kind of at a very superficial level. I've met your significant other and stuff like that, but like we never really talk in depth of like our future plans and your future plans. Mine are quite clear at this point, but yeah, your kind of future plans and stuff. So that'll be fun to kind of like look at that, and what does growth look like on that level. So there's some growth that's like a very like more emotional and more, I guess, like I would call it abstract, and like something that's maybe a little bit harder to put your hand on. Feelings, things like that, which likely one of my bigger weaknesses in my life up until now. I think I've made some strides, but like feelings and stuff like that is much harder for me to grasp. And then there's more like motor skill type growth of like actually looking at like finances or how to organize yourself, or maybe career path growth. It's more tangible, something you can put your hands on, and it's more, it's easier to come up with like a set of tools or things like that you can actually put into practice and get better at. So yeah. So why does it matter? Why does it matter at every kind of like, why does personal growth matter to us?
Well, it really depends what we're trying to grow from. So like you said, for you it's feelings and more emotional things, and then the financial stuff. And I think everybody wants growth in finances. It's almost like you can never have enough, right? So that's one for me. That's how I would utilize this podcast, because for me it's, how can I grow financially? Of course, because I'm 26, I sure hope that the older I get and the wiser I get, right? Because that's also part of growth. I do want to get wiser. I can learn ways to get financially ahead and to live comfortably. We would all love to live comfortably. Yes, money doesn't buy happiness, but it definitely helps. Let me tell you. So
it buys cars and fancy things.
Yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't. We'll talk about that.
I like my, anyways.
And I think like from my perspective, why it matters, it's kind of like more for me, it's like a new realization of, there's a whole bunch of things I wish I knew at your age that have kind of come about now. And I'm going, man, like that's really cool. And I probably should be focusing on these things despite being already 40. There's some things I'm going, yeah, I probably should have done this 15 years ago, but it's not too late to start now. And I think
never
I
too
can
late.
maybe bridge that gap for listeners of kind of like your age, and and be like, oh man, yeah, this guy's way off base right now. He's 40 years old. He never did this stuff, and I got the opportunity to get it done. Great. If that's something that can help anybody at who's kind of like starting off on their growth journeys and
Or
stuff.
someone who is following in your footsteps, even you when you were younger, that can be like, oh, this is where he ended up, like, or he wishes he could have started earlier. Like maybe that's a wake up call for me. Maybe I should start earlier.
Yeah, I agree with that. So growth is a never ending thing. There's growth in your retirement. How do you approach retirement? What do you do now with all that extra free time? How can you grow your new passions, hobbies? It's a never ending cycle. There's no perfection to growth,
Oh.
and it's super important.
Actually, going into that, there's no perfection in growth. Most times failure is needed as a wake-up call to introduce growth in your life. I don't think you can grow if you haven't failed, or you can't grow if you don't know what it looks like to be at the bottom. You have to have a starting point. And if you're not aware of it, you can't grow.
I agree. And the big one there is most people will tell you that are, and we can define what we mean by success, right? Because success is another word that like is kind of, what is success to everybody? It's kind of individual, and we'll talk about our own versions of success. But most people that have now considered themselves successful, and we'll take the example of a very successful businessman or businesswoman. Most people that consider themselves extremely successful now will tell you, I'm on my 18th version of a business. I bankrupted 7 of them, or 8 of them.
It's barely ever one and done.
You're so beyond the exception if you ever completely succeed at the very first thing you ever try. And you can even go back to like it's like as silly as like lemonade stands when you're a kid, garage sales as like.
Yeah. Did you see how Amazon started?
Yeah.
In a little like room like this, actually.
Amazon, Apple, Microsoft
Same
started
way.
in people's in people's garages or garages. For those of you wondering why we say the word garage, or how I say it at least, we are Canadian.
The garage.
Garage, yeah. So I think it's garage down south there.
Oh.
But yeah. So we are Canadian. So one of the cool aspects of this too is that it's a Canadian flavor to what we're talking about. So we're giving you guys examples living up here in Canada, but obviously that apply a little bit everywhere across the world. For growth is not really a limited to where you live, but at least we can give some examples about where we live here up in Quebec, Canada. So we spoke about success, and I kind of mentioned there quickly, like the definition of success is kind of different for different people. Like my version of what success looks like to me is going to be maybe it might not even be my own version of success. It might be making sure that my kids have enough and have ample and stuff like that. So that's my version of success, is growing what I am and teaching that to my kids. And so success might not even be necessarily linked to just personally for me. What, like if I say the word success to you and you look at yourself, how would you define success to yourself today? That can change as well, obviously.
Will change. It's already changed for me from like 18 to 26.
How so?
I was more materialistic. I thought success meant I would have the coolest clothes and the coolest car with the biggest house and this and that. And I think success is obviously striving for more, 100%. You can always be a better version of yourself. I won't think otherwise. You can always be a better version of yourself. So striving to be the better you, but appreciating where you are as you go, and trying not to kind like as so for me, how I see it now is that for the last few years of my life, I feel like I keep, coming back and thinking, okay, a year ago is exactly where I am now. I want to change that. So already this year, I feel like I'm succeeding because look what we've started. We've started something new. I am no longer in that vicious cycle. I have broken out and tried something new. So this year for me, 2025, my goal and my successes are gonna be measured by the trial and errors that are to come this year. I will try every single thing possible that I think is possible, and I will continue even though it's failing. I know a bunch of even YouTubers that have started posting, like they started posting 6 years ago and only now they've made it super big. So that's what I mean by trial and error. I won't stop just at the end of this year. I will continue going until one day maybe it'll go somewhere. So for me, it's really trying new things. And if that means like my environment doesn't look the same anymore, then so be it. I'm trying to just jet forward and, like I said, not come back to where I was a year ago. That for me is my new process and my new growth, my growth process.
It's funny because I put myself back in a long time ago, back in my shoes at your age, and I kind of had that same. And you know what? Maybe I sometimes I still do that same like external validation where like how much money I make and the car I drive and the house I have is kind of like used to be my definition of success, and especially in the last few years that definition has like completely evaporated. And I drive a very reasonable, old used car, and it doesn't even matter to me. My next versions of success do come with like, home ownership is one of them for me. Like one of the big things we've done is like kind of redo our financial situation over the last few months. And I shared kind of like a win over on my growth Instagram, where I kind of showed the steps I took over the last few months, and how just the food budget for me, like just the growth in reining in our food budget, and that is success to me. Like it's not even an end goal, but it's just like a little piece of growth where like we're so proud of it, and we kind of sit down at the end of the day, and my wife and I, we talk about it, and we're just like, wow, like I think we were spending, let's say 5 months ago, we were spending almost close to $3,000 on food in a month. That included like going out to restaurants and obviously our groceries, and our groceries weren't really like catered to things we actually needed during the week. It was more like, hey, here's a fun, cool new snack thing we could buy. Hey, here's a Costco pack of God knows what we don't need, but we're going to buy anyway. And we're going to have, we're going to have way too much of it and throw half of it out and not really organize ourselves that way. And we've brought it down to where our monthly family budget is $1,000, including, so that's for 2 adults, 2 kids, including restaurants visits. And we've now kept that up for like 2 months.
That's amazing.
And we're going to reach that again on this month. So it's just little moments like that for me, which is my new success. It's like the little growths in between the actual achievements that I kind of look at a little bit more, and how that makes me feel on the inside. Like I have less stress. I have no worries. I know we're gonna, there's no more what's gonna happen to me, and it's the same thing career wise. I had some turbulent career stuff happen to me over the last several years, and now I'm in one that's a little bit more stable, and I'm happy, and there's slight growths within there. So for me, success is more little wins, little steps of growth, and kind of going towards that final achievement versus just the final achievement. Obviously the final achievement is a big success in itself, but I kind of find my little happinesses within the little wins and the little gains and all of that. So we kind of have that same balance of what it used to look like for me probably a little bit too long. I'm glad you realized it where you're at now. If I had this conversation with you 2 years ago, I would have been on the same lines of like, yeah, I want a Porsche next year or something like that. And now I could care less, what the color of my car is and what the make and brand of my car is. So it's definitely changed a lot in terms of my my vision when it comes to that. And that kind of probably leads us into a good topic of conversation, which is personal growth, and how society views and expects things of you, and what it means. Yes, we will talk about financial growths and wins that make us look good to our neighbors and our friends and to each other and all of that, but it's so much more, right? Like growth is so much more than what the Joneses think of me.
Oh, exactly. To be successful, you need to be happy with yourself. And if you're not, because can I say that I'm 100% happy with where I am? No, that's why I want to grow, right? However, do I feel like from the age of 18 till now that I've grown and matured the way I think, the way I feel, the way I choose to not react when I feel 100%. And that's a success in itself. It has nothing to do with money, but being able to cross all of those bridges and learn about myself. Now I'm like, okay, now we can focus on money. Now we can focus on going and getting that thing. Cause now I have full confidence in myself to be able to get there. And so success is being happy with where you are, but unhappy enough that you're willing to go further.
And I mean, willing to go, happy where you are, willing to go further is like that inner. That's probably kind of like what I was talking about with that inner fire, that inner feeling. How does it make me feel, like on the inside, right? Like that's where growth really is at this point for me. It's way more of how I feel, how we feel as a family, how we think we're doing, and how much further we can go, and seeing those little wins and taking them to the next level, and kind of not caring. And it's a tough one. It's being able to say no to people. It's being able to not really care about, what goes on, how that affects what everybody else thinks of us. It's really tough. It's tough to say no to people. It's tough to do things differently than you've always done them. There's people I've known for my entire life. I live in an area where we've all known each other forever. None of us kind of moved out. I've been here for 40 years, and it's like all of a sudden I'm kind of growing personally. I'm taking things further, and I'm changing, and not everybody might be okay with that, but we're okay with that, and we're okay with them not thinking about it, or not caring what they think about, and we're just gonna do us and do our little wins, and then take it as far as we possibly can. And that's kind of like what it is. So I'm definitely in agreement with that.
And in this podcast too, like we'll see the differences in like we said, the differences in our lives, the differences in our growth. And, even if this continues on for years, which I don't see why not, maybe my views won't align with yours. But that's kind of what we're going with it, right? That nobody's views will ever align fully with each other, and that's okay. As long as you're content with your vision, you're content with your values, and everything's aligning with you, then you're okay.
Yep, we will evolve. We will evolve with this show, and I don't think anything we say today is meant to be held against us later. You know what I mean? I think we're allowed to change our minds and our opinions on certain things, and as we grow, the landscape of things will change. I think I guess we can segue right into talking about kind of like aligning the growth with, at the very least, your base values. Now, our values can change too, but I think we all have our own kind of values that we want to live by. Mine have evolved over the years. 26-year-old Jason has way different values than 40-year-old family man Jason does. So, it's the growth has to kind of align with what your values are. And my current values are raising the next generation of mini-me's, of minions, and being the best version of a family man that I can be, and being the best version of a family that we can be together. And that's kind of like where we redefined our priorities recently, where we kind of like said to ourselves, like, hey, what are our values? And we sat down and we had that conversation, like, what do we want? We value education, we value positivity within the household as much as we can. Sometimes one of the little gremlins is maybe a little bit too much to handle, so you you have less patience there. But so for us, one of our growths and values is to kind of save money towards our kids' education, and how do we prioritize that? So we really did sit down and have a conversation, because for me, a lot of this growth has impact with other people. I'm not necessarily just kind of like a solo. Not that yours doesn't, but I would imagine that you're kind of like on like a bit of a more solo journey, if you will, for the time being. And then one day, if we're in this podcast 2 years from now, and we're recording the day of your wedding,
that's cool.
Your values and your growth might change at that point, right?
For sure. Right now, the world is my oyster. Anything is possible. I can achieve anything. Kind of because I don't really have to rely on anybody right now. Nobody's really like waiting for me to get home because they need to eat, or like their diapers need changing. You know what I mean?
Thank you for that reminder. Speaking of oysters, you ever eat oysters?
Yeah, I love them.
Really?
I love oyster. So something about seafood and me go hand in hand together.
That's the Greek in you.
Oh,
that is
I
the
love
Greek
seafood.
in you. Yeah, that's the Greek in you. I
like, those seafood boil videos?
Yeah.
I'm jealous every
you're
time.
all up in there? Okay. That's interesting.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah, sorry. And we just ate too, but I am hungry too. Anyway. Yeah. You said oyster, and I really I'm not
You're not a big fan?
Nah. No, I'm gonna go with no. I'm not a big oyster guy. I'm a little too afraid of all like the oyster horror stories out there.
I've seen.
I've tried oyster. It was an interesting texture dans la bouche, but
oh my god, so good.
So good, huh?
So good.
You're big on the sushi. I know that. You love sushi.
Love sushi. I'm
a big sushi
anything
fan as well.
Seafood, I'll try it. It's good.
I've been introduced to a lot of seafood. Your grandfather's octopus was
something else.
Oh my god.
One thing I regret that I didn't ask him to teach me how to make octopus.
We talk about it all the time, where Felicia and I were like, we miss that, and nobody's replicated it, and we don't know how to make it.
Even when he makes his squid sauce that you put over rice, and nobody's ever been able to identical. I've eaten everybody, like Yana's, my grandmother's, all that. It comes close, but it doesn't hit the same. And I'm like, I just wish I had asked him. But then again, how old was I? Like 19, 20? I was studying at that point. I didn't really think.
Yeah. When he passed, you mean?
Yeah.
It was like 5-6 years ago now.
Yeah, so I was like
20.
1920. I was like 1920, exactly.
Man, time flies. That's crazy. What a little sidetrack there. Thanks for mentioning oyster. I really love that for us. And I guess that brings us into maybe let's ask of the listener. What does growth mean to you guys? I think it'd be cool to kind of engage with the podcast with us. We'll put some links to some socials down below. You can obviously comment on wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're gonna have this podcast up wherever podcasts are available. You can reach out to us on our socials that are down below. I do have we do have a TikTok account and things like that, which we'll be
TikTok,
posting
YouTube,
things. We have
Spotify.
YouTube. We have our Spotify account, which is where we post our main channel. Podcasting goes there, and then it'll spread from there to Apple and all the other Spotify, all the other podcast things. But please let us know, like, what does growth mean to you guys? What's an area of growth you guys are working on now? Maybe we can kind of like tweak and cater our future episodes to some of the more popular ones you guys talk about, although I'm very sure we're going to be kind of hitting every aspect of life. But
Pretty sure.
yeah, send us that. We'll even put the podcast email down below, and you guys can send things like that. And so don't be shy. Like, we want to hear from you guys. We hope to be able to learn from you. We hope to be able to kind of show you guys our side of things and our vision of things, and hopefully that awakens something within you. So definitely
That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to more of inspiring people and hearing their stories as well, and seeing how them listening to us has changed their life in a way.
I think that's going to be the coolest thing. And I think sharing some of the things we've learned from the listeners and then put into practice, maybe.
Yeah.
We can also share our successes from that. Like, hey, user XXX gave us.
Whoa.
Yeah, weird one, eh? Why did I go XXX?
Whoa.
Listen, it's a late night podcast, it's not for the faint of heart, but yeah, user XXX threw me way off there, didn't it? So user XXX can let me know, and I can let them know whatever they asked me to try. I tried, and we'll go from there. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be definitely an interesting journey. Lots of learnings, lots of challenges, lots of disappointment. By trying things and failing, but in that we'll have new growth and stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. So we challenge you guys to let us know what growth means, to talk to us about that, reach out, and I think what we'll do is at the end of every episode like this, and we can do one for this episode, but we'll kind of give you guys a couple of the tools that we've read about or that we kind of use on a regular basis now, and that may be something that you guys can take away from each episode and each topic. So if we talk about one today, value alignment exercise is something that I've done before. I do in a career setting. I do it in a lot of settings where you're looking to grow. So you write down your top 3 values, and you check that your current goals just align with them, and are you actually on the right path? Because when you harmonize the goals with the values and the growth with the values, it is way easier to personally achieve those, and also like be excited about being involved. If the goal in itself, and this is true for every aspect of your life, if the goal in itself really doesn't align with your values, if your current, let's say, employment doesn't align with your values, if your current money investing, you're investing money in places that just don't align with your values, you're not really as excited about it. So aligning your values with your goals is super, super important. So I would say definitely go through the value alignment exercise, and talk about and figure out what aligns the goals, and talk about it.
And also writing it down is a very good way to kind of see how far you've come, right? If you have your base, you've written it down, and then the goal, and then where did I land in the scale, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I haven't done that yet this year, but I am going to. I have a book where I write down. I've written previous years. I've never been able to follow up. I think it's because, like I said, I always land in the same. This year is not that year. So I am going to start writing again, and every few months go back to it, remind myself of it, and then kind of write down where I'm at currently and what's where I'm headed.
Very cool. So that's going to wrap up for episode numero uno, the intro. The podcast is born. We have birthed the baby.
2040 Vision podcast.
This is going to be a really, really cool. So some of the episodes you guys can expect coming up, we're going to talk about, organization. We're going to talk about routine. We're going to talk about productivity and time management. That's going to be some of the episodes you're going to see coming up here in the very, very near future. And likely when you listen to this one, you will have 2 or 3 of those episodes to be able to indulge in right away. Remember to reach out to us. Let us know what your idea of growth is. Let us know what you guys are working on. We always we're going to be very happy to engage with everybody, no matter where you post to. And maybe we'll be able to like go through some of them in future episodes and be like, hey, when we spoke about this in this episode, we got some of these listeners telling us things, and we can kind of mention them and go over them in some of our episodes as kind of like a quick recap at the beginning of one to recap back, like a flashback to other episodes. So for now, that is going to do it. We'll catch you in the next episode of the 2040 Vision podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.